Welcome to Read It and Eat It in the Library. My name is Cheryl Sikora, and with me today is my good friend and former co-worker, Carmen Nahirney. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for inviting me, Cheryl.
Carmen has chosen The Forgotten Bookshop in Paris by Daisy Wood. It is a dual narrative novel. Part of it is set in modern times. We follow Juliette. She goes on a trip to Paris with her husband. While she's there, she learns that he has been having an affair, so she decides to stay in Paris while he goes home to the US. Eventually, she meets some new people who become great friends. She has a fantastic support system, and she decides that she's going to stay in Paris and start an English language bookstore. In not quite alternating chapters, but back and forth we go. Then to Jacques and Mathilde. They get married as World War II is breaking out. The war quickly becomes extremely impactful in their lives, and Mathilde soon leaves to join the resistance, and she gets detained. Eventually, Jacques also joins the resistance and offers temporary safe haven to those who need it in a secret room in his bookstore. It's a fantastic, enjoyable, quick, entertaining read that I highly recommend. So Carmen, it seems like you're a big fan of the historical fiction.
Yeah, I've read a few of them over the years, quite a few World War II historical fictions, and also from in China as well, like the Lisa C books and too. So I always just like it to learn about what life was like for other women and other people in times before we exist. I
also read a lot of historical fiction, and I find myself wondering about the research, and like it would just be so fun to be the research assistant of a historical fiction author.
Agreed. And I always learn so much too. I find I have to bring my phone out and Google things and trying to learn more, because there's so many things that I don't know about that happened in those times. For example, like Chinese foot binding, or the experiments that happened on women in Auschwitz with the World War II books. And so there's so much to learn.
Sometimes I find myself taking things for fact that aren't fact, but it's, that was the reality in a book. So I think it's important to fact check your own things. Absolutely. For sure. So this book is set in Paris. Paris almost acts as a character for the novel. It is a super important feature. Have you ever been?
No, but I've always wanted to go. And I think that was the reason why I chose this book, because I was a student in French immersion, and I've always just had a love of all things French in Paris. So I think that's what caught my eye. And it's like a little trip to Paris when you're reading the book. So I hope to go someday. Haven't been yet.
The descriptions are so vivid. I haven't been either, but I could really imagine myself in the squares and see the front of the bookshop. And yeah, she clearly spent a lot of time there, and really has put a lot of effort into getting the characters or the character of Paris and the detail very accurately there.
So much history.
So this is a dual narrative book, as I mentioned. That seems to be like the trendy thing right now, to have two storylines going at the same time.
Yeah, it's fun, and I like to, when I'm reading them, try to figure out, because there's always some connection, right, to how they're going to bring them together. And I just think that shows a lot of creativity as an author when they're planning their book out. How am I going to make these two different timelines, two different stories intersect? I didn't pick it out in this one, though. I wasn't able to predict how they would meld together.
I generally don't try to sleuth it out, because I end up being frustrated with the part, that's so obvious, but I missed it, or whatever. One thing that I find with dual narrative books is that I'm usually more interested in one storyline than the other, but I didn't find that in this book. No. I was equally interested in both of them.
Yeah, I found the same. I think it was because the modern storyline has a woman who is about my age and our age, where your kids are grown up, they're off to university, and it's that whole finding yourself and like, what am I going to do with my life now once my kids are gone? And then, of course, like I said, I've read lots of historical fiction books, so I did enjoy both the timelines in this book as well.
We also, both of us, have something else in common with Juliet in that we've both had fairly significant career changes in the past little while. Yeah. And so how has that worked for you? Has your career, have you been satisfied with your career change, or do you wish you had done it earlier? Or
I'm really happy with my change. I loved what I was doing before. I was a kindergarten teacher for a very, very long time, and I switched into being a vice principal at my school this year too. So change is good. Sometimes we don't always seek it out, but it's been a really, really good change. I miss my coworkers and my other people that I spent time with, but I've grown as a person, and it's good to shake things up for yourself every once in a while. Keep you on your toes.
Yeah, I feel the same. I really miss the family of coworkers that I had in my previous position, but I feel fulfilled by my current role in a way that wasn't there anymore in my old job. So I'm also happy with the change, but it was a big deal in the moment. Like, I was at my old job for 20 years and I thought I would retire there. Yeah. And it was quite terrifying to just leave it all behind. But I'm happy. I'm happy with it most days.
One thing I've learned is that I have a lot to share. Not that I wasn't doing that before, but I'm just doing new things now, and I've been teaching for a long time, and so it's like I actually do know a lot of things. Like, I have a lot of good things to share with doing mentorship with new teachers. So that's been really exciting for me in my new position.
I totally agree. I had learned some leadership lessons, and I was being mentored so many times where in the moment I had no idea. Mm-hmm. And then something similar will happen here, and I know how to deal with this. Yeah. This is simple. I can handle this. I have some experience and some wisdom to shed on this topic, and that was surprising to me. Mm-hmm. Because when I took this management position, I thought that the people part was going to be the most challenging thing, and it is not by far. So Jacques, he joins the resistance finally. Matilda's really eager to go right from the beginning, and I was so sad for Jacques. I didn't think he was going to get there. And then I got to thinking how I think that's pretty common for couples, where it seems like you're having a disagreement, but really just one side or one half needs a little bit longer to marinate in the thinking than the other.
And you evolve together as a couple too after being together for such a long time. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I was really happy when he got on board. So the resistance members, they use famous authors as code names. If you had to choose a code name along similar lines, who would you choose?
Boy. I have so many favorite authors. I don't know. I always know that if I'm reading a Kristen Hanna book, that it's going to be a good book. So I don't know, maybe I'd go something along that lines. The Nightingale. That's my favorite book that she wrote.
Absolutely.
That'd be a fun code name.
Absolutely. Yeah. I like that. My favorite author by far is Jane Austen, but I think that's not maybe the best code name. But I love the sound of Baudelaire. Oh. I don't really read French poetry or essays anymore. Not that I did ever voluntarily, but I did read some for the purposes of school. But just the name Baudelaire, it just sounds so
sophisticated.
Fancy and sophisticated in French. So I'm pretty sure I would choose Baudelaire. So Jacques and Mathilde, they kind of lose track of one another. Mathilde goes off to the country, and Jacques is working at the bookshop in the city. We have the story from his perspective, and he's so lost without her. And then comes a letter from her that is delivered to him, saying that she's okay. Mm-hmm. I was so happy that he got that he had that reassurance in his life. And then later in the story, in Jacques' last moments, he writes her a letter and she gets it after he has passed away. And the power of the written word really was there for me. And I just was so happy that they got the comfort of knowing what happened to one another, even though they never met up again.
What's interesting is that's so different from how we are now. That we just text each other, that you can message each other instantaneously, whereas this way you go for months or years not being able to connect or knowing that your loved one is okay, and that's so different from our world. And so that's something that struck me when I read the book too. Like, how would I feel if I didn't know my husband was alive for years at a time?
Yeah, I have no idea how that would go at all. So near the beginning of the book, Nico says to Juliet, "I don't understand this obsession with the past. Say you uncover a few random facts about your grandmother. You can never really understand what she thought or how she lived. You can't use her life to add meaning to yours." And that was just a statement where my first thought was, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And then my upon further reflection, I was like, well, if you can't use the experiences and the thoughts of your ancestors to add meaning to your life, what's the point of it all?
Yeah, it's hard. I see that as parenting, right? Like, you want to let your kids have their own way and make their own mistakes and do their own things, but as a parent, if you've gone through things before and it's like, oh, I learned that's not a good choice, right? And so it's letting them have that balance of finding their own way, but sharing your own wisdom as well, right? You don't want them to repeat the same mistakes that you made. And it's hard to sit by and watch them do that.
Absolutely. It's a very tricky balance to figure out when do you offer guidance and when do you just let them discover for themselves, because I was not the kid that wanted a bunch of input. I wouldn't have listened even if it was offered. So I get why it's important to just self-discover, but it's hard.
Yeah.
So Nico is a character that Juliet meets very quickly. She starts frequenting a cafe and sees three men that meet on a regular basis, and eventually she becomes friends with them. And he's such a jerk at the beginning.
Yeah, very arrogant.
And then they end up as a couple. And I'm not sure there was enough redeeming in his nature. I didn't see what she saw.
I felt like she was rushing into it. It's like, your husband just left you, and then now, I'm like, take some time, be by yourself, figure out what you need. But she didn't hear me.
No, I totally agree. Like, she was with her husband for, I think, more than 20 years. Yeah. And I don't know if you can possibly completely know who you are as a person without that relationship there. I think some period of self-discovery is important. Perhaps, though, it is also valid that she discovers herself in collaboration with somebody else. Maybe. Yeah. I don't know. But there was just nothing about him that I really was attracted to at all. So there are a couple of minor characters in the story that I thought were developed enough, but just not quite as interestingly or as well, I thought, as the main characters. So there's a character named Delphine. She is Nico's girlfriend at the beginning. She is described as very petty and very beautiful, with a stunning long back and shimmering blonde hair. And I think she's part of the reason why I didn't like Nico, because if he's so attracted to someone like that, is it possible to have a complete about face and be so instantly attracted to Juliet, who seems to be much more of a woman that I would be familiar with, or but I didn't understand the point of her.
No, she didn't have a lot of substance, it seemed like.
But she was she just kept coming back. So I don't know. And then he wasn't a Nazi. What do they call it with the French soldiers that were part of I don't remember what they're called. But there was that soldier that kept coming back who would make veiled threats, and he would...
Oh, that was collecting the books?
Yes.
Hair something. I can't remember what they called him. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was also very puzzled by his perpetual presence in the book, and he never really seemed to go anywhere. So I wondered if maybe that was a bit of an editing slip, that maybe eventually, in the first iteration of the book or somewhere along the lines, he would have been part of turning them in or part of saving them or something, but he never really understood his purpose. He was just there. So Juliet, she moves to Paris unintentionally, and she meets these new people, and they quickly become very important friends in her life. Did you find that part realistic?
I thought it was like positive that she found somebody because she needed a community, but the reality is I think it's difficult to make a whole new set of friends that at our age of life. When your kids are little, that's where Cheryl and I met like a long time ago, was when our kids were little at a mom's group. And so when you have people of similar interests and you're in the same places, you're hockey or other kinds of things, it's easy to make those connections. And a lot of the friends that I have now are friends that I've had for a long time. And I have friends at work too, but you're right that socially to go out and meet people now doesn't seem quite as easy before.
Yeah.
You're not in each other's space all the time. I just finished reading Mel Robbins' book, and there's a chapter in that book about that, and she's saying basically when you go to school, you're together with each other all day long for years, and you have all the same milestones, and you work through things together. But then when you go to university, then you're all off on your own separate ways, and you're not with each other in a classroom all day or graduating at the same time, and so it's difficult to make those repeated connections because you just physically aren't in the same space as people as often as you were when you were young. And I thought that was a really interesting way to look at it because it's true.
Absolutely. Yeah, I felt the same way. I thought it was fantastic for Juliet that she made those profound friendships so quickly. At the same time, I thought, I'm not sure that would happen for me in the same way. I'm pretty slow to trust people. I think the language, even though she spoke French, the language, just making friendships in a different language would be
difficult,
tricky. So I was happy for her, but I was a little bit perplexed if that was realistic or not. So one little minor thing is that when Juliet lives with her husband in the U.S., she is an active person, but she is very... she's described as her husband loves her curves and her handles or something like that, which is very realistic for me. But then she starts running in Paris, and then she attracts this man who has a rippled, muscled chest, and I just thought, is that realistic too? It's just a little thing, but she's got to be exhausted from all these life changes, and then she's adding on running on top of, again, good for her.
Maybe it's the Parisian air. Maybe that's what we need. I don't know. Or maybe so she can eat all the pastries and the croissant and all those things like that she needed to up her game a little bit.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, we'll go with that. I think that one can do anything in the Parisian air. I'm happy with that explanation. So Juliet, near the end of the book, discovers the secret room where Jacques had been hiding the people who needed help during the war. And she wonders if she should dismantle the secret room and donate it to the museum because she feels bad about profiting from this dark time in history. Do you have any thoughts about that? If this was your bookstore and your secret room, what would you do?
Well, there was a lot of controversy in the book that people didn't think she should be renovating it because of the things that had happened there in the war. But I don't know. I find you can honor things. Like she could have found some way to honor it, because if they dismantled it, then that little piece of history would have been lost, and then the story wouldn't be there for us to know about too. So
I totally agree. I think that honoring it is important, and I also think that it would be fun to go visit the square and enter the bookshop and then see what there's a way of putting yourself in the moment and in the situation if it stays where it was, rather than just, here's a secret room that was once in a bookstore if you were to visit in a museum.
It would lose its magic if it was moved somewhere else, I think.
Yes, totally. Well, Carmen, this was a good book choice. We are ready to taste some food inspired by the book. But thanks for picking it. It gave us lots to talk about.
Oh, you're welcome.
All right. Well, just as Paris is rich in history, it is also rich in food. The food options that were referenced in this book were many. I took a full page of notes about what our options could be. There was lots of what you would typically think of French cuisine, like bread and cheese and wine. There was rich beef and lamb stews, lots of green beans. There was some French pastries, some things that I'd never heard of before, like chouquette. Which is a pastry, like a ball type pastry with a custardy inside. I was going to make that, except they said you had to make it on the same day as you are consuming it, which didn't work out for me. Gougère, which I wasn't familiar with, is a French cheese puff.
Google that too, because I didn't know what those were when I was reading. Most of the French words I knew, but that one caught me too.
Yeah. There was truffles, which was very tempting for me to make because Aaron cannot stand truffle anything. So I thought, well, that would be a fun opportunity to have that when he's not here. There was a lot of spreadable meats. There was a surplus of pâtés, snail mousseline, and lots of spreadable meat, which did not tempt me at all. There was potato dauphinoise, and a lot of different potato dishes that I wasn't familiar with. But what we ended up with today are these cookies. They are rolled cookies. They're called palmiers. And they are made with puff pastry. You roll out the puff pastry and sprinkle cinnamon, sugar, and cardamom right on the dough. And then you roll the dough halfway, put them in the fridge for a little while, thinly slice them, and bake them. So, palmier. Cheers.
They smell delicious.
They crisp up really nicely.
Mm-hmm.
They're not as flavorful as I would like them to be, but they're still enjoyable. Good snack.
I find them very flavorful, and they're crunchy. They're like cinnamon twists that are crunchy.
Absolutely. And then the second thing that we have today, I'd like to say the French title.
Galette des rois.
Excellent. And so that means king cake or epiphany cake. And so the traditional cake would be served around Epiphany, and there would be 3 almonds baked into the cake. And if you got one of the almonds in your piece, then you would get to be the king for the day. I did not put any almonds in ours because I thought, at our age, we do not need any dental surprises. And so
I know a guy.
You do. That you do. So king cake, it is with puff pastry again. You have a layer of puff pastry at the bottom. Then you spread a layer of apricot jam on top of that. And then you make frangipane, which I had no idea what that was either. But it is an almond paste that you have to cook. So it's almond flour and eggs and almond extract and a few different kinds of flours all mixed together, and then you spread that on top and then cover it up with another layer of puffed pastry. So this is king cake. Okay, in an effort to not make noise on the podcast, I gave us plastic spoons, and then perhaps that wasn't the best choice for edibility, but I'm going to use my fingers.
Delicious.
Thank you.
You always have been one with craftiness and deliciousness with baking and things, if I remember over the years.
I sure try. Yeah. I think I have just as many failures as I do successes, but that's part of the adventure for me. I don't take it too personally if we fail. We've certainly had our share of fails during this podcast, but we've had our share of successes as well. So the textures on here are really interesting because the puff pastry is at this point, like a soft, but you can feel the kind of sliminess of the jam. Slimy is not really the most appealing word, but it is not off-putting in this instance. And then the almond flour frangipane kind of adds a different kind of grainy texture. So there's a lot of textures going on here, which I actually really find quite enjoyable.
Yeah, it's delicious.
Excellent. So the third part of our podcast is talking about public libraries, my third favorite thing. What is your favorite thing about Lloydminster Public Library?
Well, it's so nice and bright in here. It's so nice and bright and open, and the accessibility with it being in the mall, I'm sure you've noticed a huge increase in your circulation and your visitors, because it's just so easy to come in while you're in the mall and pop in. So
I do like, it is very bright in here. It was too white for me at the beginning, but I do really enjoy the freshness of it. And we don't have any natural light or exterior windows, and I think the whiteness really compensates for that. And you don't really notice that it is completely closed in. So yeah, I really like that.
Well, it's a big difference, because before it was in the basement, right? And so even though there were the skylights there, but it just was never bright in that space. And so this is really, really nice.
It is a nice change. Do you have any favorite library memories from when you were a kid or when your kids were little?
Oh gosh, I have so many library memories. I don't know if you know where the Alan Sapp Gallery is in North Battleford. Now, I grew up in North Battleford, but that was the public library up until I was about 10, and it's a Carnegie building, so it's actually a heritage building, and I can still kind of smell how it smelt like in there, and hear the stairs, because there was these old stairs, and the kids' book section was downstairs. And then it was a huge deal when we got our new library in, I don't know, about 1985. I think I was about 10, and so then that was just this huge big space for us. But we were all about going to the library, so much that we used to play library at home when we were little. I have two sisters, and so we took our entire book collection and we made little, because of course it was all paper cards then, so we made book cards for every book and wrote the name of the author or the title of the book and taped it into the book, and then we had a circulation stamp, and we would play that Guess Who game. I don't know if you remember, like you would have that flip the faces up. Those were our patrons. So like if Bill wanted a book, we would write his name on the card and then stamp it. It was all about the stamping.
Absolutely.
That's why I wanted to be a teacher, because I thought correcting looked fun, and it's not. But anyway, I was all about the stamping and all. So we had a whole library system. Like, we just loved going to the library, loved playing library. And even now in our beautiful new school, my favorite space in our building is the library, which I know you're familiar with. It's bright, huge walls, south-facing windows, and it's just a beautiful space for kids to come and it's cozy but bright, and our little story pit, and it's just a great place to be at our school. So I think libraries are super important for the community and for families. It's just a great place to be.
Absolutely. Yeah, St. Thomas Library is one of my favorite places as well. So what's next on your to be read list?
Oh my goodness, I have so many, Cheryl. I need to retire so I can I can read. I've got like an ongoing list of, like, if something catches my eye, and then I think I have about 50 books loaded up on my Kindle right now. So we have a little book club with our staff at school, so I'm trying to keep on top of those books. But I find I do most of my reading during school breaks in the summer. That's when I just can really get into my books. I don't even know what's next. I learned about Colleen Hoover the last year, and Frida McFadden, which I know lots of people have known about those books for a long time, but they're new to me. So I find those are quick reads to kind of go through, and I can get those done during the school year.
Yeah, there is a significant difference between reading when you're trying to have your head in work and when you have a lot of other responsibilities, and reading during break time.
Absolutely.
I really enjoy being able to set things aside and focus on reading without having to feel guilty that I should be doing 12 other things instead, which typically only happens during the breaks. So, yeah. So are you an e-reader mostly?
Yeah, I've had 2 carpal tunnel surgeries in the last little bit, so I found when I had to hold my paper books, my hands would fall asleep all the time. So I reluctantly switched to an e-reader, but now I'm used to it. It took a while to get used to not having the physical book, like the turning of the pages. But now I really like it because it's less clutter at home, and then I can just have my book in my purse wherever I go, and I do have a few minutes here and there. Or if you go on a trip, you can take like 50 books at once and pick whatever pops out, like at the moment, whatever catches your eye. But sometimes it's a feeling too. It's like, what do I feel like reading? And then it's like, I don't know, something pops out at you, and that's normally how I pick what's next.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Carmen.
Yeah,
I
thank you
loved
for having me.
visiting with you and talking with you, and you had a fantastic book choice. I likely wouldn't have picked this one up on my own, but I was very grateful to have read it. So thanks again.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.